In a world where towering walls kept humanity safe from giants called Titans, a child named Levi Ackerman was born far beneath the sunlight, down in the underground city, where daylight never reached and the air was heavy and cold. Little Levi came into the world. His mother, Kuchel, did her best to care for him, but life in the underground was cruel and unkind. When Levi was very young, his mother fell ill and passed away quietly in their dim lantern-lit room. The small boy was left alone in the darkness, hungry and frightened, not yet understanding that she was gone. One day, Levi's uncle Kenny Ackerman, a hardened man with sharp eyes, came to that underground city. Kenny had once left the surface out of necessity and happened upon his sister's small, dusty home, only to find Kuchel lifeless and her little son staring up at him with hollow, sunken eyes. At first, Kenny wasn't sure what to do with this frail child. He was a rough man, infamous above ground and below, not the sort you'd imagine as a caretaker, but something in Levi's quiet, determined gaze moved him. In an uncharacteristic act of compassion, Kenny chose to take the boy under his wing. From that moment, Levi's childhood was anything but ordinary. Under Kenny's grudging care, Levi learned how to survive in a world of shadows. Day after day in the underground's winding alleys, Kenny taught Levi how to fight, not just to brawl, but truly survive. The lessons were harsh but necessary. How to wield a knife with steady hands, how to sense danger in the silence, and how to steel his heart against fear. Kenny even taught Levi the subtle art of getting along with dangerous people, showing him how sharp wits could be just as important as sharp blades. Levi was a quick learner. Though small in stature and quiet by nature, he grew swift and strong. He rarely smiled, but in his own way, he found contentment in honing his skills and keeping his little corner of their underground home meticulously clean. In the squalor of the underground slums, Levi took comfort in simple cleanliness, sweeping their dusty rooms, wiping blades free of blood or grime. It was a habit born from having so little. The few possessions he had he kept in perfect order. Kenny often scoffed at the boy's fussing, but Levi's need for cleanliness was one of the few hints of the gentle soul he kept hidden inside. Years passed in this dim underworld. One day, when Levi was still just a teenager, but already skilled beyond his years, Kenny decided that his tutelage had reached its end. In a small tavern, after Levi swiftly won a brawl against a group of thugs twice his size, Kenny quietly slipped away. He had taught Levi everything he knew about surviving. Now, believing the boy to be strong enough to make it on his own, Kenny vanished into the darkness, leaving Levi truly alone once again. Levi never heard a tender goodbye or a reason from the man he had come to see as a mentor. One moment Kenny was there, the next he was gone. And so, with a heavy but resilient heart, Levi Ackerman continued forward alone, forging his own path in the only world he knew, the underground city. In his solitude, Levi became well known in the underworld. He wasn't loud or boastful, but everyone in the underground crime circles knew of the small young man with unmatched fighting skills and a cold stare. Levi formed a tiny makeshift family with two close friends who believed in him. A clever boy named Ferlin and a bright, spirited girl named Isabel. Together they scraped by, doing what they must to survive. For the first time since his mother, Levi had people he cared about again. Ferlin's dreams of a better life and Isabel's laughter in those dreary tunnels lit a quiet hope in Levi's heart that maybe someday they could leave the underground's darkness and see the open sky. That hope arrived in a way Levi did not expect. News echoed through the underground of the Survey Corps, soldiers from the surface venturing down beneath the capital. The Survey Corps were legendary among the underground folk. They were the brave souls who left the safety of the walls to fight the titans outside, risking their lives for the sake of humanity's future. But what were they doing below ground? It turned out the Survey Corps' ambitious commander, Erwin Smith, had caught wind of Levi's infamy. Irwin saw potential in this skillful criminal from the underground and extended an offer: join the Survey Corps, fight for humanity, and in exchange be granted citizenship on the surface, freedom from the murky caverns Levi had always known. Levi was wary. He had only known treachery and hardship under the ground, and trusting a commander in the military was difficult. Yet Furlan and Isabel were excited by the idea of living under the open sky, free from the oppressive ceiling of the underground. They urged Levi to consider it. Sensing his friend's hope and longing, Levi agreed to at least go along with Irwin's plan for the moment. Perhaps this was a chance at the freedom they dreamed of. Thus, Levi and his two friends joined the Survey Corps, albeit under unusual circumstances. At first, many soldiers in the regiment were uneasy with them. These were underground thugs, after all, not trained cadets. But Levi quickly proved his worth. In training his mastery over the omnidirectional mobility gear, the specialized grappling equipment soldiers used to zip through the air and fight titans, was astounding. He moved like a whirlwind, effortlessly swift and precise. Experienced scouts watched in awe as Levi, who had never even seen the surface until recently, adapted to soaring through forests and city ruins, as if he'd been born doing it. Even Hang Zoe, an eccentric squad leader with a passion for Titan research, took note of Levi's unusual fighting style and remarked with excitement at his raw talent. For a short while, it seemed Levi, Furlan, and Isabel might truly find a new life among the scouts. But fate can be terribly cruel. On one expedition beyond the walls, Levi's very first taste of the outside world, disaster struck. Under the vast open sky that Isabel had dreamed of seeing, the trio encountered a horror they were not fully prepared for. An abnormal Titan ambushed their unit. In the chaos of battle, Levi was separated from Furlan and Isabel. By the time he realized the danger and raced back, it was too late. Levi came upon a heartbreaking scene in the ruined forest. The bodies of many fallen scouts, and the towering figure of a Titan looming over what remained of his dearest friends. Isabel's green cloak lay torn and stained, and Levi saw Furlan's lifeless form caught in the Titan's grasp. The open sky they had yearned for was witness not to their freedom, but to their final moments. A storm of emotion broke within Levi. Anguish, fury, and a profound sorrow he had not felt since losing his mother. This pain was different, sharper, and mixed with a cold realization. He had failed to protect the two people who meant the world to him. Levi's vision blurred with tears he would not let fall. With a steadying breath, he allowed only resolve to remain. In an explosion of skill and anger, Levi attacked the Titan that had taken his friends. His movements were like lightning, faster and more ferocious than ever before. The Titan never stood a chance. Levi cut it down with merciless efficiency, every strike precise and fueled by grief. In moments the monster lay dead, steaming and crumbling to nothing, but Levi was left with a wound in his heart far deeper than any blade could inflict. When the expedition returned, Commander Irwin Smith confronted Levi. Irwin had suspected that Levi and his friends initially joined with ulterior motives. Indeed, Levi had once contemplated harming Irwin under pressure from a corrupt noble in the capital. But Irwin also saw the change in Levi. On that day, as Levi knelt beside the spot where his fallen friends lay, Irwin quietly approached. Instead of anger or blame, Irwin offered Levi a hand and a choice. He spoke to Levi not as a criminal, but as a comrade. The Survey Corps could be Levi's new family and his purpose, if only Levi would entrust his strength to something greater than revenge or survival. With the memory of Furlan and Isabel heavy on his soul, Levi accepted. In that moment, Levi Ackerman truly became a member of the Survey Corps. He vowed to dedicate himself to Irwin's cause, to protect humanity from the Titans, so that fewer people would have to experience the pain he was feeling now. From then on, Levi rose quickly through the ranks of the scouts. His talent was unmatched. Soon it was said that Levi was humanity's strongest soldier. Despite being of relatively small build, he could bring down titans with a flurry of spinning slashes from his blades faster than anyone else alive. Irwin recognized Levi's importance to the regiment and often kept him close at hand for critical missions. Over time, a deep mutual respect formed between the commander and his strongest captain. Levi, who once answered to no one, found someone whose orders he would follow without question. Irwin Smith. He trusted Irwin's vision and leadership completely, and became Irwin's staunch right hand. In Levi, Irwin found not just a powerful soldier, but a dear friend and confidant. They were very different men, one stoic and blunt, the other charismatic and driven, yet both shared an unspoken understanding born of fighting shoulder to shoulder through countless perils. Life in the Scouts brought out aspects of Levi that those in the underground would never have imagined. For one, his notorious obsession with cleanliness became a common light-hearted joke among the soldiers. Levi was known to make his new recruits thoroughly clean the barracks, and he himself would be seen meticulously wiping Titan blood off his blades, even on the battlefield. This odd quirk, though humorous to his comrades, was also strangely endearing. It showed that despite all the violence and chaos Levi lived through, he cherished any small bit of order and cleanliness he could create in his world. Levi didn't smile often, but as the years went by, those under his command came to realize that behind his cold gray eyes was a man who cared deeply. He rarely raised his voice. He gave orders in a calm, low tone that nonetheless carried great weight. His squad learned to interpret the subtle ways he showed concern. He would brew tea in the morning and silently place a cup before a tired comrade. Levi had a peculiar habit of holding his teacups from the rim rather than the handle, a little practice dating back to a cracked cup from his childhood. He would stand guard a little longer, so a younger soldier could rest. He would even lend a listening ear late at night to a troubled teammate, offering blunt but honest advice. For Levi, these quiet acts were how he expressed the care he seldom spoke aloud. In time, Levi was entrusted to lead a special squad of elite soldiers. Among them were Petra Raul, a kind-hearted and skilled fighter who admired Levi's dedication. Oluo Bozad, brash and talkative, who comically tried and often failed to imitate Levi's cool demeanor. Eldgin and Gunther Schultz, experienced men who respected Levi deeply. This team was handpicked by Levi and Irwin to protect something, or rather someone, very important. Aaron Yeager, a new recruit with the mysterious power to transform into a Titan himself. Aaron's existence was both a ray of hope for humanity and a source of fear and uncertainty. Many didn't trust Aaron, worried that he could turn into a monster uncontrollably. But Irwin saw a potential to use Aaron's power to turn the tide against the Titans. And Levi, ever loyal to Irwin's judgment, agreed to take responsibility for Aaron's safety and, if necessary, his discipline. When Aaron first joined the Scouts, Levi's first interaction with the young man was harsh but calculated. During a military tribunal to decide Aaron's fate, Levi shocked everyone by brutally beating Aaron in front of the assembled commanders and nobility. His kicks and punches were swift and merciless as Aaron lay restrained on the courtroom floor. Many gasped at the violence of it. Yet Levi's intent was not to hurt out of cruelty. It was to prove a point that he could control Aaron if Aaron lost control. By demonstrating such dominance, Levi convinced the higher-ups to place Aaron under the Survey Corps' watch, rather than execute him or hand him over to the military police. After the trial, as Aaron recuperated, Levi visited him. He spoke to the young man in his typically blunt way, essentially saying, "I don't enjoy doing that. But if you lose control or threaten my comrades, I will put you down myself." Aaron understood. In Levi's sharp gaze, Aaron did not see malice, only a strict resolve and, oddly, a form of protection. Aaron grew to respect Levi immensely, not just as the strongest soldier, but as a leader who would make hard choices for the good of everyone. Under Levi's guidance, Aaron and the rest of the squad spent long days and nights preparing for a daring expedition to uncover secrets that could save humanity. Beyond the protective walls lay the vast unknown teeming with titans. Erwin and Levi planned to use Aaron's titan power to seal a breach in the faraway Wall Maria, and to investigate a mysterious titan conspiracy along the way. This mission would become known as the 57th Expedition Beyond the Walls, a journey that would test Levi's squad like never before. They set out at dawn, a long column of horses carrying the Survey Corps flag beyond the gate. For Aaron, it was the first time venturing outside the walls. For Levi, it was another day in the endless struggle, but this time with the heavy responsibility of keeping Aaron and his squad alive. The open plains were eerily peaceful at first, just the sound of hooves thundering on earth and the wind in the tall grasses. The scouts moved in a long scouting formation to spot titans early. Levi rode with his special operations squad around Aaron, protecting him. He remained vigilant, senses sharp to any sign of danger. Several hours into the expedition, the calm shattered. From the direction of the right flank came an alarm signal, a reddish plume from a flare gun. Titans spotted, but there was something different. Through his telescope, Levi saw soldiers in that direction being flung into the air. And then, galloping into view at terrifying speed, came an abnormal female titan, far larger than any ordinary titan, with intelligence in its eerily human-like eyes. It was unlike anything they had encountered. This titan was selectively targeting soldiers, slapping aside some and outright killing others, as if searching for someone. Levi's instinct screamed that this was no coincidence. The female titan was hunting, and likely it was hunting Aaron. Levi's squad immediately sprang into action to evade and confuse the pursuing titan. They had a plan. Aaron was not to fight or transform unless absolutely necessary. They would handle it. These soldiers were elite, each with numerous titan kills to their name, and they trusted their captain and each other deeply. They led Aaron through the dense forest of giant trees, hoping the titan would be slowed down among the massive trunks. The forest canopy cast long shadows over the tense group. Levi, speeding through the tree branches with ODM gear, issued calm orders. Maintain formation. Don't engage unless needed. Trust the plan devised by Commander Erwin. For a while, it seemed to work. The female titan was drawn away by decoy flares and ambush attempts, but she was cunning. One by one, those attempts failed, and then, in the depths of the forest, Levi's squad had their fateful encounter. The female titan caught up, and in the chaos that followed, Levi's team chose to face the titan head-on to protect Aaron. It was a battle fought with immense courage. Petra, Oluo, Eld, and Gunther launched themselves at the towering foe with fearless coordination, their cloaks flaring and blades shining. Under different circumstances, they might have triumphed, but they were up against a foe who was as intelligent as she was deadly. The titan defended herself with terrifying speed and skill, swatting the soldiers out of the air one after another. Gunther was taken by surprise. First, cut down before he could even strike. Eld and Oluo managed to wound the female titan, slicing into her legs, but she regenerated quickly. In a desperate move, the female titan hardened her skin, a unique ability they'd never seen, turning parts of her body to an impenetrable armor. In a single spinning kick, she struck Petra and Eld with crushing force, sending them hurtling against the trees. Petra, kind Petra with her warm smile and steadfast loyalty, fell from the tree boughs, her body hitting the forest floor with a thud. Oluo, enraged, tried a frontal attack in retaliation, but the titan caught him, silencing the boastful yet brave soldier forever. By the time Levi realized the extent of the peril and raced back to help, it was too late. The forest was quiet again, but for the heavy, thundering footsteps of the female titan and the rustle of leaves, Levi came upon the aftermath. The precious members of his squad lying broken and lifeless among the roots and moss. For a brief moment the world slowed around Levi. These soldiers were not just his subordinates. They were comrades he had trained, eaten meals with, and quietly cared for. Petra's letter to her father, Oluo's banter, Eld's steady presence, Gunther's reliability, all those little things swelled in Levi's chest. But Levi did not cry. He rarely ever shed tears openly. Instead, he funneled every ounce of pain into focus. He would save Eren and make this sacrifice meaningful. Eren, overcome by the horror of seeing his friends killed, had transformed into a titan himself in a rage to fight the female titan. But she defeated Eren's titan form as well, tearing him out of his titan body and swallowing him to kidnap him. As the female titan began to flee with Eren captive inside her mouth, Mikasa Ackerman, Eren's adoptive sister and herself a remarkably skilled fighter, arrived on the scene. Mikasa, reckless in her desperation to save Eren, chased the titan with a fury. Levi intercepted Mikasa, gesturing for her to follow his lead instead of attacking blindly. Though Levi was injured, he had hurt his ankle in the frenzied chase through the forest. He ignored the pain. With icy calm, Levi engaged the female titan. What followed was a display of Levi's full capability, a blur of motion, as he spun around the female titan, slicing at her joints faster than she could guard. In a breathtaking flurry, Levi cut through the titan's toughened skin where it was not hardened. First an eye, then muscles in the legs and an arm. The massive being staggered, unable to keep up with Levi's relentless assault. Mikasa watched in awe as Levi moved with absolute precision and controlled anger. In mere moments, the female titan was neutralized, kneeling and defenseless. Levi then did something unexpected. Instead of trying to kill the titan outright, he took a calculated risk. He struck the titan's jaw, forcing it open, and swiftly extracted an unconscious, steaming Eren from within, all without killing the titan's human holder, whose identity was still a mystery at that time. His priority was his comrade's life, above revenge or glory. With Eren rescued, Levi signaled Mikasa to retreat. Mikasa, still angry and wanting to finish the titan, hesitated, but Levi gave her a stern look, despite the blood trickling down his face from the effort. She relented, and the two fled back toward the walls, with Eren safe in Levi's arms. Behind them, the female titan let out a screech of frustration, but could not pursue. Levi's rescue mission was a success, but it came at a devastating cost. They returned to the walls as a somber procession. What should have been a triumphant expedition with newfound knowledge ended with the survivors carrying the weight of lost friends. Inside the gate, when the horses finally slowed, Levi dismounted and gently laid the unconscious Eren down for medics to tend. Only then did Levi allow himself a moment to limp off to the side, his injured foot trembling beneath him. A few of his fellow scouts watched as Levi silently observed the retrieval of the bodies of his squad. Petra's body was carried back by another soldier, her head lolled to the side, her usually bright eyes closed as if in gentle sleep. Levi approached, and for a second, his stoic mask faltered. He knelt and ever so carefully straightened Petra's Survey Corps cloak, which was draped over her like a shroud. This small gesture, done with trembling hands, spoke volumes. Levi's heart was heavy beyond words. As the scouts retreated, even this act of bringing the dead home was cut short. More titans were closing in, making it too dangerous to slow down. In a heart-wrenching decision, Commander Erwin ordered that they abandon some of the corpses to ride faster and save the living. One young scout, overcome with grief, tried to salvage his friend's body and almost got himself caught by a titan. Levi, clenching his jaw against his own despair, intervened. He urged the soldier to let go of the corpse for the sake of his own life. Levi understood that pain better than anyone in that moment, how it tore at one's soul to leave a comrade's body behind. But he also knew that the lives of those still breathing had to be protected. His words, though blunt, carried kindness. "We can't do anything for them now, but we can save you. Live and make their sacrifice worth it." The soldier, with tears streaming, obeyed, and they rode on. Levi's own agony remained unspoken, locked behind his steely eyes. Back within the walls, the reality of the loss settled like a shroud over the Survey Corps. Families of the fallen gathered, hoping to see their loved ones return. Petra's father, unaware of her fate, cheerfully approached Levi with a hopeful smile, mentioning how Petra had spoken of devoting herself to Captain Levi's command, and how he imagined she might have even had feelings for him. Levi, standing there battered and bandaged, could only listen in painful silence, his face betraying nothing. He did not have the heart to tell the man that his daughter was gone. He simply let Petra's father speak of her, cherishing her memory in that way for a moment longer. Then Levi quietly walked away, shoulders heavy with sorrow. It was in these small, poignant moments that Levi's humanity shone through his stoicism. In the aftermath, Levi recovered from his injuries slowly. A damaged ankle could not keep him from duty for long, but it forced him to step back during the next big conflict. As fate would have it, while Levi was temporarily sidelined, the battle for humanity's survival raged on in other parts of the walls. The scouts faced new attacks, the devastating breach of Wall Rose, and encounters with the Beast Titan and the Armored Titan. But Levi's direct involvement during those fights was limited. It pained him to be unable to fight alongside his comrades, but he took the time to heal, train new recruits as best he could, and strategize with Erwin for the struggles to come. Eventually, Levi fully regained his strength just in time for humanity's changing tides. The royal government that had ruled with secrets and lies was overthrown by Commander Erwin and the scouts in a brave coup d'etat. The true royal heir, Historia Reyes, took her rightful place as queen, and hope was rekindled that humanity might finally unite against the Titan threat. However, this internal victory wasn't won without conflict, and Levi found himself face to face with a ghost from his past during that tumultuous time. It happened swiftly, on a quiet morning in the city, soon after the scouts had been declared enemies by the corrupt king's regime. Levi and his squad, now consisting of Aaron, Mikasa, Armin, and a few trusted others like Jean, Connie, and Sasha, were hiding out in a tavern, catching their breath. Suddenly, without warning, the windows shattered. In an instant, one of Levi's new subordinates fell, a spray of blood on the wall, shot by an enemy they couldn't yet see. Levi's eyes widened as he recognized the work of a sniper and the distinctive crack of ODM gear firing hooks with guns attached, an anti-personnel squad. And leading this ambush was Kenny Ackerman, Levi's uncle and former mentor, now armed with a smoking pistol and a twisted grin. Kenny had become the leader of the 1st Interior Squad, an elite force serving the old regime, tasked with eliminating the scouts. Seeing him again was a shock that Levi felt in his bones. The memories of childhood, of a tall figure in a brimmed hat showing a half-starved boy how to hold a knife, flashed through Levi's mind. But there was no time for sentiment. Kenny and his squad attacked with relentless ferocity, guns blazing in the tight confines of the tavern. Levi's squad was outnumbered, and at a severe disadvantage. Their ODM gear was meant for fighting titans, not dodging bullets. Yet Levi Ackerman was nothing, if not adaptable. Reacting instantly, he flipped a table for cover and shouted for his squad to scatter and escape through the back. Bullets splintered wood and glass all around. Levi grabbed a rifle left by one of his fallen companions, using both his combat prowess and ingenuity. He discharged a burst of smoke to mask their movements, and then, with acrobatic grace, he leapt through the gunfire. At one point, Levi even used a fallen comrade's body as a momentary shield, a grim necessity that hurt his heart even as he did it, to avoid Kenny's deadly shot. He burst out of a window in a shower of glass, grappling onto the city's rooftops to draw the attacker's attention away from his friends. What followed was a high-speed chase across the rooftops and through the narrow streets of the city. Kenny, laughing wildly, pursued his nephew with zeal, his squad hot on Levi's heels. For Levi, the city became an obstacle course, zipping around chimneys, careening through alleyways, all with the acrobatic fluidity that only he possessed. The early morning light cast long shadows as Levi spun and vaulted, desperately trying to think one step ahead of his pursuers. Despite the danger, Levi's mind was sharp, analyzing each turn. He managed to take out a few of Kenny's squad one by one, turning their own tactics against them in close quarters where their guns were less advantageous. During that chase, Levi and Kenny briefly exchanged words, flung across the alley as they bounded from building to building. Kenny's tone was a mocking sneer, yet tinged with something almost like pride. Levi responded in his typically curt fashion, each word measured. There was no time or space for a heartfelt reunion between uncle and nephew, only the lethal dance of hunter and hunted. Eventually, through quick thinking, Levi escaped into the safety of the dark, twisting back streets, where even Kenny would think twice to follow immediately. The scouts lived to fight another day, thanks largely to Levi's leadership and reflexes in that harrowing encounter. Not long after, Levi and his comrades uncovered the true plot behind the government's actions, the false king, the stolen power of the founding Titan. In Historia's pivotal role, they resolved to rescue Eren and Historia from the clutches of the royal government. This mission led Levi back into Kenny's path once more, in a grand underground cavern beneath the Reyes Chapel. There, by the flickering light of countless candles and the eerie glow of Titan serum, a final confrontation was set. Kenny and his squad cornered Levi and the scouts as Historia's father, Rod Reyes. The battle in the cavern was furious and chaotic. Thunder spears, new weapons the scouts had acquired, exploded against stone, and gunshots rang in the enclosed space. Levi fought like a man possessed, taking down enemy operatives with deadly efficiency. Amidst the turmoil, Rod Reyes, in a desperate act, ingested a Titan serum and transformed into a gargantuan, twisted Titan that threatened to bring the cavern down. In the violent aftermath, many were wounded or killed, and the interior squad was defeated. Levi found Kenny near a wall, collapsed and badly burned by the heat of the transformation. In the flicker of fires and dust, Levi approached his old mentor for what would be their last conversation. Kenny was dying, his breaths ragged. The cocky grin he always wore had faded, and in its place was a weary, reflective expression. Levi knelt beside him. Perhaps for the first time in Levi's adult life, he looked at Kenny not as the enemy or the ruthless teacher, but as the only remaining link to his family. In that quiet, broken moment, Kenny revealed a truth that made Levi's heart ache. Kenny was Levi's uncle, Kuchel's brother, something Levi had never known until then. Kenny, voice trembling and weak, explained that he left Levi not out of malice, but because he felt he could never be the father figure Levi needed. He handed Levi a small vial, a Titan serum, one last valuable gift, pressing it into Levi's palm. With a final act of kindness in his own gruff way, Kenny told Levi to take it, to use it to protect himself or his comrades. Levi watched as the life faded from the eyes of the man who had taught him how to live in a cruel world. There was a pang in Levi's chest, an old pain from childhood resurfacing as he held his uncle's hand in that final moment. Levi didn't cry, but he felt an immense, poignant sorrow. Kenny Ackerman passed away, and Levi closed his uncle's eyes with a steady hand, whispering a quiet goodbye that echoed only in his heart. In that solemn scene, Levi was left with newfound knowledge of his lineage. The Ackerman clan, his people, had a hidden power and a history of persecution by the monarchy. It answered some questions about Levi's own uncanny strength and resilience, and about Mikasa, who shared the Ackerman name. But those answers came at the price of losing yet another person tied to his past. With the monarchy overthrown and Historia crowned as the true queen, a new era dawned within the walls. Freed from corrupt rulers and armed with fresh determination, the Survey Corps set their sights on their next great mission, reclaiming Wall Maria and finally learning the secrets hidden in Aaron's family basement in the ruins of Shiganshina district. Levi, now one of the highest-ranking officers under the newly appointed Commander Hang Zoe Erwin, was gravely injured in the coup and had temporarily passed command to Hang, prepared for this mission with a heavy mix of hope and dread. Erwin, despite injuries, insisted on leading one last expedition. He could not rest until he saw the basement and learned the truth that had eluded humanity for so long. Before they set out, Levi had a private conversation with Erwin. The two stood atop the wall at dusk, the sky painted in gentle oranges and purples. Erwin's arm was still in a sling from his injury, and he looked tired, but his eyes gleamed with an almost feverish determination to see this through. Levi was concerned. He knew Erwin's drive was both his strength and his potential downfall. In a rare moment of candidness, Levi urged Erwin to stay behind, to let someone else lead the dangerous charge, perhaps to finally rest after a lifetime of sacrifice. But Erwin, with a haunted smile, refused. There was a dream he had to fulfill, reaching that basement and confirming the truth his own father had died for. Understanding his friend's resolve, Levi did something then that he rarely ever did. He expressed genuine care, though it came out gruff. He told Erwin that if things looked hopeless in the coming battle, Levi himself would carry out Erwin's duties. In other words, Levi was prepared to take on Erwin's burdens, and even Erwin's lifelong dream, if it meant Erwin might live. But Erwin only gave a grateful shake of his head. This was his choice. Seeing there was no changing Erwin's mind, Levi made a solemn promise in return. When the time comes, I'll make the choice for you. Give up on your dream and charge forward, and I promise, I'll kill the Beast Titan. Erwin listened quietly as Levi essentially prepared him for the possibility of a suicidal duty. In Levi's resolve, Erwin found the clarity to make a final decision. They both knew what might be required soon. The mission to retake Shiganshina began on a moonlit night. Levi led the recruit-heavy new scouts alongside veterans like Mikasa and the others, while Erwin coordinated the tactics. They plugged the breach in the outer gate successfully using Aaron's hardening power, a moment of triumph that quickly turned into a nightmare. From within Shiganshina, enemies revealed themselves. Reiner, the armored titan, ambushed them, and Bertolt, the colossal titan, soon joined, devastating the district with fiery destruction. But perhaps worst of all was the sight on the horizon beyond the wall. The Beast Titan, with its ape-like form, appeared at the head of an army of titans. This Beast Titan was controlled by Zeke, a mysterious enemy with royal blood and a cunning mind. Zeke trapped the scouts outside Shiganshina by hurling a barrage of stones, obliterating buildings, and cutting off any escape. The Survey Corps suddenly found themselves caught in a deadly pincer, titans on both sides, and little hope of victory. Amidst this chaos, Levi and Erwin quickly realized the grim reality. They were outnumbered and outmatched. The Beast Titan's bombardment had pinned down a large portion of their forces behind meager cover, and every moment brought more deaths. It was here, in this bleak moment, that Erwin made the hardest decision of his life, and Levi helped him make it. Erwin gathered the remaining recruits, most of them fresh-faced youths trembling with fear. He was about to ask of them the ultimate sacrifice. Levi stood by, watching Erwin wrestle internally with what he was about to do. Irwin's hand clenched around the arm of his horse. His dream of reaching the basement was within reach, but to get there he would have to let it go and lead these men to their deaths as a distraction. Levi saw the turmoil in Irwin's eyes and stepped in front of him, forcing Irwin to meet his gaze. In a firm, almost harsh tone, Levi spoke the words that freed Irwin from his torment. "It's time, give up on your dream and lead them. Lead them straight to hell." Levi's words were blunt, but they carried an unspoken compassion. He was telling Irwin that it was okay to let go, that Levi would shoulder the weight of that dream and the burden of what came next. Irwin, eyes widening then softening, nodded, a mixture of relief and sorrow washing over him. In that moment, Irwin entrusted everything to Levi and resolved himself to do what only he could do now. Irwin raised his sword and let out a rallying cry that echoed over the rooftops. He roused the frightened recruits, inspiring them with fervor even as he told them the painful truth: to defeat the beast titan, they must charge forward as decoys, likely to their deaths. His voice rang with passion and despair entwined, urging them to devote their hearts for humanity's victory. The young soldiers, tears in their eyes and courage swelling in their chests, answered with a resounding roar. Yes, sir, they would follow him. They would ride with the commander one last time. As Irwin led the suicidal charge across the open field, waving his arm and shouting encouragement, Levi slipped away with grim purpose. Using the Titans attracted by Irwin's charge as cover, Levi rocketed forward, low to the ground and out of the beast's direct line of sight. The sound of galloping horses and the brave cries of men willing to sacrifice echoed behind him. While the beast titan focused on this apparent desperate attack, Irwin and the recruits screamed defiance, even as stones shattered their ranks. Lives were being lost by the second, but Levi used those seconds to advance, unseen. Finally, Levi reached close quarters with the beast titan. Then the world seemed to hold its breath. In an explosion of speed, Levi launched himself at the towering monster. He zigzagged through the air so quickly that to the beast titan's eyes, Levi was a mere blur. With one swift strike, Levi's blades tore through the beast titan's arm, rendering its throwing arm useless. In the heartbeat that followed, Levi was upon the beast titan's shaggy form, slicing and tearing with surgical precision. Zeke, within the nape, was utterly overwhelmed. He'd never witnessed such fury. This was Levi fulfilling his promise. Every ounce of skill, every drop of hatred for the creature that had slaughtered his comrades, was channeled into his blades. In a matter of seconds, Levi had completely crippled the beast titan. His final strike cut cleanly across the beast titan's nape, ripping Zeke from his titan's body. Levi tore Zeke out and slammed him to the ground with a force that astonished even himself. Levi stood over Zeke, breathing hard, the air thick with steam from the titan's wounds. In that moment, Levi could end it. He had waited so long for this chance to avenge all the pain the beast titan had caused, to avenge Irwin's impending death and the loss of countless comrades. He raised his blade, his eyes cold and resolute. Zeke, injured and barely conscious, muttered something about save Irwin, or possibly tried to speak. But Levi's mind was set on one thing, finishing the beast titan once and for all. But fate intervened once more. Before Levi could deliver the killing blow, the unexpected happened. From behind the cart titan, another enemy charged in desperately. Its swift quadrupedal form snatched Zeke up in its maw, shielding him. Levi was forced to leap back as the cart titan, carrying the gravely wounded beast titan, fled with surprising speed. Levi shouted in anger, a rare outburst from the normally composed captain. He had been this close to eliminating their greatest threat, only to have it snatched away. The beast titan was gone, but Levi's immediate concern snapped elsewhere, to the aftermath of Irwin's charge. All around, silence was falling. The rain of stones had stopped. The plain before the wall was littered with the bodies of brave soldiers and their horses. The Beast Titan's forces were in disarray now that their leader had fled or fallen. Levi, still panting, looked out over the field and felt his heart sink. Nearly every single member of the courageous charging group lay still. Only one lone figure on horseback was seen returning slowly. It was Flock, a young scout, miraculously alive and carrying someone on his horse. As he got closer, Levi saw that Flock bore the unconscious, gravely wounded body of Commander Irwin, who was somehow clinging to life by a thread, a chunk of stone lodged in his midsection. On the other side of the battle near the wall, smoke and steam cleared to reveal another devastating sight. Armin Arlert's small burned body and an unconscious Eren, who had just barely helped defeat the colossal titan with Armin's sacrificial ploy. Levi's heart pounded. In his hand he still clutched the titan serum that Kenny had given him. One dose that could turn a near-dead human into a titan, thus allowing them to eat a titan shifter and inherit their power, effectively saving them from death. But there was only one dose. Now Levi was faced with a cruel dilemma that he had never imagined. Two of his allies, both dear in different ways, lay dying. Irwin, his trusted commander and friend, and Armin, the brilliant young strategist and beloved friend of Eren and Mikasa. Only one could be revived with the serum and go on living. Levi, with steady if bloodied hands, rushed to where Eren, Mikasa, and Armin were. Eren was frantic and desperate, pleading with tears in his eyes that Armin had to be saved. Armin, who had given everything to defeat the colossal titan, whose burnt body was barely recognizable. Mikasa, equally desperate and fierce, was ready to fight for Armin's life. On the other side, Flock laid Irwin down gently, saying that Irwin should be the one to be saved. Irwin was the leader, the symbol of humanity's hope. It would be foolish to let him die. Flock couldn't understand why they would even consider saving Armin over the great commander. For Levi, time seemed to slow as he stood in the middle of these pleas. He saw Eren's tearful face, begging for his childhood friend. He heard Flock's impassioned argument and felt the weight of the syringe in his grip. Levi's gaze fell to Irwin, his friend, who moments ago he had watched charge bravely, now lay on the verge of death, pale and ghost-like. Irwin's eyes were closed, his breath shallow, and Levi noticed something that struck him deeply. Irwin's hand, which had twitched as if reaching out, then fell limp by his side. It was as if Irwin, even unconscious, had finally let go of the burden of his dreams. In Irwin's peaceful, almost relieved face, Levi saw not the ambitious commander full of purpose, but a weary man who had given everything and could finally rest. And Armin, Levi looked at the barely breathing boy, one whom Levi didn't know as closely as Irwin, but whom others loved and believed in. Armin was so young and had so much ahead of him. He had dreams of seeing the ocean, of exploring the world beyond the walls. Despite Levi's often hardened outlook, he valued the lives of the young and hopeful. In Levi's mind echoed the countless deaths, the look in Irwin's eyes when he made that charge, Kenny's last words about living a life with something to hold on to, and Levi's own principle, to save as many lives as possible, to not squander an opportunity to keep the living alive. Steeling himself, Levi made his decision. In a swift movement, before Mikasa or Eren could react, Eren gasped in relief and gratitude through his tears, while Mikasa, who had been poised to possibly draw her blade in panic, eased back, realizing Levi's choice aligned with what she prayed for. Flock began to protest. How could they let the commander die? Levi silenced him with a look that carried years of pain. Levi murmured softly, almost to himself, that Irwin had done enough, that it was finally time for the old commander to rest. In his heart, Levi was thinking of how Irwin had been a devil for humanity's sake, how he sacrificed everyone including his own innocence for the greater good. Perhaps, Levi thought, this was the highest mercy, to let Erwin be free from this hell of unending war and guilt. Armin soon transformed into a mindless pure titan, his new titan body born out of smoke and spine-shattering growth. The titan devoured the unconscious Bertolt nearby, who had been defeated by the group. With that, Armin inherited the power of the colossal titan and returned to human form, fully healed, though he would carry the weight of being a titan shifter henceforth. As Armin opened his eyes, confused and trembling, Levi knelt by Erwin's side. Erwin had not regained consciousness. He was barely alive. Levi lifted Erwin's hand gently, as if to offer comfort. There was a faint ghost of a smile on Erwin's lips, and a distant look, as though he were seeing something far away and beautiful. Perhaps, in his final dreams, Erwin saw the vision he yearned for. The answers in the basement, a world free of titans, or the faces of his fallen comrades welcoming him. Levi spoke in a hushed whisper, only Erwin might hear. Rest, Erwin. Your job is done. With that, Levi closed his friend's hand over his own heart and stood up, turning away as Erwin Smith, the greatest commander of the Survey Corps, slipped away peacefully, finally released from his duties. Levi did not allow himself to break down. He was a soldier, and there was still work to do. But the impact of Erwin's loss hit him deeply. In the coming days, Levi was quieter than ever. As the survivors made their way into the Jaeger family basement and uncovered the truth of the world, the existence of Marley, other humans beyond the sea, the true history of Titans, Levi processed it all with a stoic face. Inside, though, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a clarity. All the sacrifices, Erwin's especially, had led to this revelation. Now they finally understood what they were fighting and why. Levi owed it to Erwin and all the others who died to see this through to the very end, to secure a future without fear. The discovery in the basement changed everything. The enemy was not just mindless titans, but other humans across the ocean. After a period of recovery and political change, the people inside the walls began to prepare for what lay beyond. A few years passed. The boy who dreamed of the ocean, Armin, finally stood with his friends at the edge of the sea. When the scouts journeyed to the shoreline, Levi was there too, watching the waves lap the sand under a bright sky. The ocean was a beautiful sight, but Levi's eyes remained focused on the horizon, knowing that across the sea their new adversaries waited. In that moment, even as the younger soldiers splashed in the water and marveled at salt water for the first time, Levi's hand subconsciously moved to an old wound on his side, a reminder of battles past and battles yet to come. Sure enough, the struggle was far from over. The island of Paradis, where Levi and his people lived, eventually struck back against the nation of Marley which had oppressed them for so long. By now, Hang Zoe had become commander of the scouts, and Levi was her strongest lieutenant. In an audacious strike, the scouts sent a small team, including Levi, to infiltrate Marley's territory and take the fight to them. In the bustling city of Liberio, during a festival night, Eren Yeager made a fateful choice to initiate an attack, dragging his friends into battle. As chaos erupted, titans transforming, panicked screams, and military forces mobilizing, Levi Ackerman once again leapt into action. The warrior titans of Marley, like the fearsome Warhammer Titan and the ever-resilient Beast Titan, emerged to fight. Amid explosions and gunfire in the city streets, Levi had one target in his sights: Zeke Yeager, the Beast Titan, the enemy who had escaped him in Shiganshina. When Zeke revealed himself, joining the battle by hurling debris at the scout's airship from afar, Levi saw his chance. He pursued the Beast Titan with single-minded determination through the war-torn streets. In a dramatic confrontation on the rooftops of Liberio, Levi outmaneuvered Zeke yet again. With a flash of his blades, Levi struck the beast titan down a second time. This time, he did not hesitate or allow any margin for escape. He cut Zeke from his titan body and incapacitated him swiftly. Zeke, cunning as he was, had actually planned to be taken. Unbeknownst to Levi, Zeke had orchestrated his capture as part of a larger scheme with Aaron. But at that moment, Levi believed he finally had the beast titan at his mercy. The battle in Marley was short but intense. When it was over, the scouts retreated onto their airship with Aaron, having inflicted heavy blows on Marley's leadership. On the airship, Levi confronted Aaron angrily. Aaron's reckless solo actions had cost innocent lives and even led to the tragic death of one of their own, Sasha, who was shot by a stowaway, a young Marleyan girl named Gabby. Levi, never one to mince words, pinned Aaron down and demanded to know if the young man understood the consequences of his impulsive aggression. Levi's frustration was evident. He had seen Aaron grow from a hot-headed boy to a more hardened man, but now Aaron was acting distant and dangerous. The trust and camaraderie that once bound them were fraying. Back on Paradis, Levi was put in charge of guarding Zeke, who was now a prisoner. Despite the victory in Marley, tensions rose between Aaron and the military leadership. Levi found himself once again in the thick of uncertainty and betrayal, but he kept his focus on the duty at hand, watching Zeke Yeager. They held Zeke in a forest of giant trees, a place where if he tried to transform into the Beast Titan, the vertical maneuvering gear would still give the scouts some advantage among the tall branches. Levi handpicked a squad of trustworthy soldiers, although many were new recruits, to stand guard with him over the dangerous man. During this time there was a strange lull. The forest was quiet, the days blending one into another with an almost tranquil stillness. Despite being enemies, Levi and Zeke would occasionally speak in brief exchanges. Zeke, an erudite and calm man despite his brutality, tried to probe Levi's thoughts, perhaps hoping to find an ally, or at least understand Levi's resolve. Levi mostly responded with curt, dismissive replies. Yet in those silent days, Levi was also grappling with his own demons. He could feel unease growing. Something about the situation wasn't right. Aaron's actions, the way things were shifting politically. Levi suspected treachery, but he wasn't sure from where it would come. Meanwhile, Zeke was playing a long game. Unknown to Levi and the others, many of those very recruits guarding him had already been unwittingly compromised. They had consumed wine, laced with Zeke's spinal fluid, rendering them vulnerable to Zeke's special scream that could trigger an unhindered transformation. Levi abstained from drinking on duty, his disciplined nature and distrust saving him from that trap. One afternoon, as Levi's soldiers relaxed slightly, chatting and drinking tea in the forest's dappled sunlight, Zeke made his move. With a piercing, eerie scream that echoed through the giant trees, Zeke activated his spinal fluid. Before Levi's horrified eyes, nearly every one of his comrades suddenly convulsed and transformed into titans. The peaceful clearing turned into a scene of nightmares in an instant, flashes of light and bursts of steam, followed by the earth-shaking crashes of new titans emerging where his men had stood just heartbeats before. Levi's heart clenched in absolute horror and fury. He had grown to know these young soldiers, even care for them in his quiet way, sharing moments of camaraderie in the calm before this storm. And now, in the blink of an eye, they were stripped of their humanity, made into mindless beasts by Zeke's cruel tactic. Those titans, formerly his comrades, lunged for Levi under the control of feral instincts. Levi was at once grief-stricken and filled with boiling anger at Zeke's ruthlessness. But he knew he had to act, for if he faltered, he would die, and Zeke's plan would continue unchecked. Levi did what only he could do. With tears he refused to let fall, blurring his vision. He swiftly and mercifully cut down each of the titans, one by one. Every strike of his blades was precise, ending the titan's life instantly, sparing the former comrades any further suffering. As he slashed through their napes, Levi silently apologized to each and every one of them. In his mind he carried the guilt. These soldiers had trusted him, and under his watch they met this cruel fate. The forest soon grew quiet again, but the ground was littered with the steaming remains of those innocent youths. Levi landed amidst the settling steam, alone, surrounded by the silence of death that felt all too familiar. His squad was gone, murdered by the very man they were guarding. Levi's eyes burned with rage as he turned toward the direction Zeke had fled. Zeke, who had used the chaos to escape, was trying to run through the forest, but Levi Ackerman was beyond fury. In a voice calmer than the grave, he vowed to himself that Zeke would not get away. Not this time. Levi pursued Zeke through the giant trees with vengeance in his veins. Zeke, transforming partially into his beast titan form for defense, hurled chunks of timber and rocks at Levi. But Levi's movements were relentless and ghost-like, zigzagging through the debris. He remembered the promise he had made to Erwin, recalled the heartbreaking sight of his newly turned comrades, and felt a steely clarity. In a swift onslaught, Levi attacked Zeke once more, forcing Zeke out of his titan with skillful strikes. This time, Levi incapacitated Zeke thoroughly. He struck Zeke down, and even went as far as to impale him with a thunder spear, a powerful explosive spear, threading it through Zeke's torso and tying the fuse around his neck like a leash. If Zeke so much as moved, the spear would detonate, likely killing them both. Zeke, maimed and desperate, was at Levi's mercy, or rather his wrath. Levi did not kill Zeke outright. There was still the larger picture to consider. Zeke was needed. He had crucial knowledge and was part of whatever Aaron was plotting. But Levi ensured Zeke could not move a muscle without consequence. Levi hauled the injured Zeke into a cart, intending to bring him back to base for interrogation. As Levi rode the cart, he couldn't resist venting some of his anguish in harsh words. He told Zeke in a low voice about every single comrade that Zeke had just taken from him, making sure Zeke knew the weight of his sins. Zeke, half delirious with pain, conversed with Levi about regret and necessity, but Levi's patience for talk was gone. Levi thought of Erwin, of Hang, of all his fallen comrades, and how everything seemed to point to this man Zeke as the cause of so much suffering. Levi resolved that after all was settled, he would personally execute Zeke. He had promised as much to the spirits of his fallen friends and to himself. However, even in chains, Zeke had one last trick. As Levi momentarily looked away, Zeke suddenly made a suicidal move. He jerked his head back hard, triggering the Thunder Spear's detonator around his neck. In a split second, a massive explosion ripped through the forest, engulfing Zeke and catching Levi in its blast. The trees splintered, and the cart was obliterated. Levi was thrown hard, his body battered by the blast and debris. In the aftermath, the forest was quiet once more, smoke curling up from a blackened crater. Hang Zoe and some of the Jigurist rebels, those loyal to Aaron, soon arrived on the scene, having heard the explosion. They found Levi's body by the river, broken, bloody, and unmoving. Hang's heart dropped. Levi looked barely alive. The Jigurists wanted to make sure Levi was truly dead, even going as far as to approach with weapons ready. Thinking quickly despite her own panic, Hang played a desperate bluff. She yelled that Levi was dead. In truth, he had a faint pulse, but he was gravely injured and unconscious. At that moment, Zeke's body, which had been blown to pieces, began to regenerate miraculously due to his Titan powers. Emerging from the stomach of a nearby dying Titan, alive and naked. Amid the confusion of Zeke's strange resurrection, Hang seized the opportunity. She scooped Levi's limp body into her arms and jumped into the river, making a narrow escape downstream with the current, leaving the Jigurists and Zeke behind. Levi drifted in and out of consciousness for weeks. as Hang tended to him in secret. The explosion had cost him dearly. His face was laced with scars, including one over his right eye, and he had lost 2 fingers on his right hand. For a warrior like Levi, these injuries were devastating, but life had not given up on Levi Ackerman yet. Hang managed to nurse him through fever and infection in a remote cabin. When Levi finally woke, bandaged head to toe, his first thoughts were of duty. He groggily asked if they'd caught Zeke. Hang had to gently break the news of all that had transpired while he was unconscious. Aaron had gone rogue, nearly staging a coup with the Jigerists, and worse, Aaron and Zeke had come into contact, meaning the power of the founding Titan was now in play. Aaron was planning something catastrophic to unleash the rumbling, a devastating march of countless colossal titans hidden in Paradis's walls, with the intent to trample the world beyond. Despite the ache of his healing wounds and the weight of these dire revelations, Levi forced himself to sit up and move. It hurt. Everything hurt. But Levi's resolve was unbroken. He had one simple goal that cut through all the complexity. I promised to kill that beast Titan. I'm not done yet. His voice was hoarse but firm. Hang saw the familiar determined spark in Levi's single visible eye and knew there was no stopping him. So they joined the hastily formed alliance of Marleyan soldiers, including some former enemies like Payek the Cart Titan and Commander Magath, and Paradis scouts Mikasa, Armin, Jean, Connie, and others who opposed Aaron's extreme plan. The group's objective: stop Eren Yeager and prevent a global genocide. Levi traveled with the alliance, ever focused despite his injuries. He would quietly sharpen his blades and adjust his ODM gear, preparing for the final battle he knew was coming. The journey took them to Odiha, where they repaired an airplane to pursue Eren, and then to the skies above the endless herd of colossal titans that Eren had awakened. As the plane caught up to Eren's gigantic new titan form, a gargantuan skeletal monstrosity carrying the terrified beast titan like an appendage, the final confrontation began. Before deploying, they all knew it might be a one-way mission. There was a moment of camaraderie on the plane, tempered with sadness. Hang Zoe, who had led them this far as commander, made the decision that someone needed to stay behind to slow the advancing colossal titans, so the plane could safely take off. True to the spirit of Erwin before, Hang chose to sacrifice herself. Levi strongly protested at first. He had lost too many already, but Hang pulled rank with a bittersweet smile. In their final exchange, Levi's hardened face softened just a touch. He helped Hang prepare by adjusting her gear straps firmly one last time, knowing words might fail him. Levi expressed his gratitude and respect in the way he knew meant the most to a scout. He looked Hang in the eyes and gave a crisp salute, and in a quiet, clear voice he said, "Shinzu Wasasa J. Devote your heart." It was the scout's creed, the same words Erwin had used to inspire them all. Hearing Levi say this was Hang's confirmation that Levi acknowledged her sacrifice and leadership. Hang's eyes brimmed with tears even as she grinned with her typical enthusiasm. And then, turning, Hang leapt from the plane and into legend, taking down as many colossal titans as possible in a blazing blaze of heroic fury before their own life flickered out. Levi watched from the plane's open door as his dear friend and comrade Hang Zoe vanished amidst the towering inferno of titans. Another weight was added to his heart, yet another name in the long list of those he had cared for and lost. Levi closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if in silent prayer or remembrance, then steeled himself. He whispered under his breath, "Thank you, Hang," and prepared to finish what they all started. The plane reached Eren's founding titan, a form so massive it defied belief, like a skeletal spine of an ancient monster stretching miles, and the Alliance dropped onto its back to engage in battle. Titans of past shifters, summoned by the founding Titan's power, emerged to fight them. Levi, despite being far from peak condition, fought with all the skill and ferocity he could muster. Every movement sent pain lancing through his healing wounds, but he pushed it aside. He thought of Irwin, of Hang, of his squad, of every single comrade's life that had led to this moment. He would not let it be in vain. Atop the founding Titan's spine, amidst a chaotic melee, Armin, now the colossal Titan, struggled against Aaron's power. Mikasa sought an opening to reach Aaron, and the others defended against waves of enemy Titans. But Levi had his gaze fixed on one particular figure. Zeke. Yes, Zeke was here once more. Because Aaron had needed Zeke of royal blood to initiate the rumbling, Zeke was now fused to the founding Titan, imprisoned in a way within Aaron's massive form. If Zeke could emerge or be drawn out, killing him might stop the rumbling, or at least weaken Aaron's control. The insightful Armin deduced this too, and from within the paths of mysterious metaphysical space of the founding Titan's power, Armin managed to rouse Zeke's consciousness and make him appear, if only briefly, atop the founding Titan's spine. There, standing as if in a trance atop the giant structure, was Zeke, gazing at the destruction around, perhaps already disillusioned by the nightmare he had helped start. For Levi, none of Zeke's possible regret or sorrow mattered anymore. What mattered was that his enemy, the source of so much grief, was now in reach one last time. Summoning every ounce of strength left in his battered body, Levi leapt from his position and hurtled toward Zeke with lethal intent. Zeke turned his head, slightly surprised to see Levi still alive and coming for him. There was no grand speech, no clever taunt in this final meeting. In a swift blur, Levi's blade found its mark and sliced clean through Zeke's neck. The cut was precise and deep, severing Zeke's head from his body in one stroke. As Zeke's head fell, time felt as though it slowed for Levi. The deed was done. Finally, definitively, Levi landed, breathing hard, as Zeke's body disintegrated into the steam, his head tumbling away and dissolving. Levi's expression was one of grim fulfillment. He whispered, perhaps to himself or to the memory of a watching Irwin, "That makes us even, old man." At that very moment, the endless march of colossal titans faltered. Zeke's death indeed achieved what they'd hoped. The connection that maintained the rumbling was severed. The gleaming mass of colossal titans began to collapse one by one, like giant candles snuffed out, crashing into the earth inertly. The rumbling was stopped. Even so, the battle was not completely over. Aaron remained a threat until his source of power was eliminated. In the ensuing moments, with the combined efforts of Mikasa, Armin, and the others, who had manifested as a colossal head inside the founding Titan's mouth, was finally defeated. Mikasa, with anguished resolve, struck the final blow, severing Aaron's head and ending his life, bringing the battle and the Titan curse to an end at last. Silence followed. An uncanny, surreal quiet after the apocalyptic rumbling and the clash of battle. The massive spine of Aaron's Titan began to crumble. The Alliance members, including Levi, barely escaped as the entire founding Titan's body disintegrated and collapsed. The next thing Levi knew, he was on the ground. The real solid earth, as gray ash rained from the sky like snow. Titans across the world reverted back to humans, now that the power of the Titans had been undone by Aaron's defeat. The long nightmare was finally over. But victory came with a bitter cost. So many lives had been lost on both sides. For Levi, the toll was especially cruel. Almost everyone he had ever cared about was gone. Irwin, Hang, his old squad, his new friends like Sasha, even enemies turned allies like Commander Magath, or brave young soldiers like Falco's older brother Colt. The list went on. Only a handful of his original comrades remained alive now, standing amidst the ruins of the battlefield. Mikasa, Armin, and a few others who looked around in disbelief at having survived. Levi, wounded and exhausted, finally allowed himself to sit down. He found a rock amidst the flattened landscape and slumped against it. His body felt heavy as lead. At last, he could rest, if only for a moment. He was bleeding anew from fresh cuts, and the old wounds throbbed, but he paid them no mind. With trembling fingers, Levi reached into his pocket and took out a small handkerchief, one of the last gifts from Hang, and pressed it to a cut on his brow to stop the bleeding. As he took a shuddering breath, something caught Levi's eye in the distance. Figures, but not of the living. Standing subtly apart from the living comrades were several translucent silhouettes. Levi blinked, wondering if it was a trick of the light or his tired mind. But then his breath caught in his throat. There they were, his comrades, those who had departed this life. He saw Irwin Smith, tall and proud in his Survey Corps uniform. Only now, without the weight of command on his face, he looked young and free. Beside him stood Hang Zoe, her goggles perched on her head, grinning warmly. Behind them, Mike Zacharias, Petra, Eld, Gunther, Oluo, Isabel, Furlan, and so many others, even Kenny, lurking at the back with a crooked smirk. They appeared peaceful, almost smiling, as they regarded Levi. Each raised a hand in salute to him, a gesture of respect and gratitude. It was as if, in this quiet dawn after the battle, the veil between life and death had thinned to allow Levi this one tender moment of closure. Levi's remaining eye widened and glistened. He had held his tears back for so long, through so much, but now, seeing the faces of everyone he had lost, gathered as if to say one last goodbye, Levi felt a wave of emotion crash over him. Slowly, painfully, Levi struggled to his feet, standing as straight as he could. Levi Ackerman, humanity's strongest soldier, the man known for his unshakable demeanor, lifted his right hand. Though missing 2 fingers and wrapped in bandages, he formed a salute as best he could. His arm trembled from weakness and emotion. Levi's voice was barely above a whisper as he addressed them, voice cracking softly. "Dedicate your hearts." A tear rolled down his cheek as he finally allowed himself to say farewell. In his mind, he thanked each and every one of them for guiding him here, for giving him the strength to continue living when he had been so close to giving up hope. The visions of his comrades slowly faded with the rising sun, but Levi felt their presence remain gently in his heart. He lowered himself back down after a moment, breathing out a long, weary sigh. It was over, truly over. In the aftermath, the world began to heal. Political turmoil still brewed. The cycle of violence and distrust between nations would not vanish overnight, but the terror of the Titans was gone for good. Survivors of the conflict picked up the pieces and tried to build a lasting peace between the island of Paradis and the outside world. And what of Levi Ackerman, the man who had given everything to protect others? His injuries were severe. For months, Levi was confined to a bed, then a wheelchair. The once unstoppable warrior had to reckon with a new reality. He would never fight again, as his body had finally reached its limit. But Levi was alive, and in a world that now had a chance for peace. If you asked him, he'd likely say that was enough. Levi spent his recovery time under the care of 2 unlikely young caretakers, Gabby Braun and Falco Grice, the very same Marleyan kids who had once been his enemies in battle. Orphaned by war and taken in by the scouts after the dust settled, these children found purpose in helping the wounded hero who had saved their world. Gabby, fiery and determined, pushed Levi's wheelchair along garden paths as Falco, gentle and kind, brought tea or blankets. At first, Levi grumbled. He didn't like being fussed over, but over time he grew fond of the two, in his own quiet way. Their youthful energy and sincere care were a balm to his soul. They reminded him of the hope that still flickered in humanity. In a tranquil town by the sea, far from any underground cavern or battlefield, Levi made a humble home, The salty breeze was refreshing, and the sunsets over the water were peaceful. Each day Levi would sit by a window or on a porch, a book in his hand, or simply observing the world. Sometimes children from the neighborhood would run up to him, fascinated by the man with the stern face and kind, gray eyes, who always sat watching them play. At first they were shy, but soon they learned that Captain Levi, as some called him, though gruff, had a soft spot for well-mannered kids. If a child approached, Levi might reach into his pocket and wordlessly offer a piece of candy or a small bread roll, perhaps one he baked himself, as he'd taken up a bit of simple cooking. The children would giggle their thanks and run off, leaving Levi with the faintest of smiles on his lips. One clear afternoon, as gulls called and the sea sparkled, Levi found himself in a small park. Gabi and Falco had brought him there for a change of scenery, and they now sat a short distance away, giving him a moment alone. Levi's wheelchair faced a playground where a few kids chased each other. He observed them quietly. A little boy tripped and started to cry, and instinctively Levi felt a pang of concern. Before he could even think to move, another older child helped the boy up, dusting off his knees and comforting him. The scene touched Levi. In it he saw the simple kindness that existed in this new generation, a generation that, if all went well, would never know the horror of titans or the fear of walls. Levi turned his face up slightly, feeling the warm sun and a gentle breeze. With his one good hand, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small photograph he kept close to his heart. It was a photo of the scouts taken years ago. In it, a younger Levi stood awkwardly off to the side, while Hang tried and failed to get him to smile for the camera. Erwin and Mike were laughing. Sasha was stuffing a potato in her mouth, while Connie pretended to be horrified. Mikasa, Aaron, and Armin were huddled together, and so on. Dozens of brave, joyful faces frozen in a happier moment. This photo was one of Levi's most treasured possessions. He gently traced a finger over it. Over each face he remembered. "I did it," Levi whispered, as if speaking to them. "We all did. You can rest easy now." There was no reply, of course, but in the rustling of the leaves and the distant crash of waves, Levi felt an answer, a certain peace washing over him. From behind, he heard Gabby's voice calling, saying it was time to head back home for dinner. Falco was already coming over to help turn his wheelchair. Levi slid the photograph back safely inside his coat. Before they left, Levi took one last look at the setting sun, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. He allowed himself to enjoy it fully. A quiet moment of beauty at the end of a long, tumultuous chapter of history. As the sun dipped low, Levi closed his eyes briefly. For the first time in perhaps forever, he felt truly off-duty. The weight of constant vigilance lifted, and in its place was a gentle contentment. Yes, there were still scars that ached, and memories that would never fade, but Levi Ackerman had finally earned a rest. He had given everything he had to protect the people he cared about, and to secure a future for those to come. And despite all the pain and loss, he was still here to witness that future begin to blossom. And so ends the tale of Levi Ackerman, the boy from the underground, who rose to become humanity's strongest soldier, the captain who led and cared for his comrades through humanity's darkest nights, and the man who, at long last, found a measure of peace under an open sky. His story is one of sorrow and strength, of sacrifice and hope. In Levi's journey, we see a life dedicated to others, a heart that quietly bore the weight of so much love and loss. Now, as Levi sits quietly in the twilight, listening to the gentle world he helped save, he too can finally sleep, not in eternal rest quite yet, but in the simple comfort of a safe night, free from the burden of tomorrow's war. May his hard-earned peace endure, and may we remember the lessons of Captain Levi's life, that even in the deepest darkness, unwavering loyalty, love, and courage can lead humanity back to the light.